This is Sally Kohn for the Women's Media Center, and I am talking with Representative Barbara Lee from California. Thank you so much for being here with me.
It's an honor to be with you.
Oh, no, the honor is entirely mine. So many questions I could ask you, but let's start with the obvious. Does America just hate women and people of color?
I don't think the American people hate women and people of color, but I certainly think that many of the policies that have been promoted, the unintended or intended consequence may appear that way. When you look at what I call the war on women, the attempts to, by the far right, you know, the Republicans, to defund Planned Parenthood, to roll back Roe versus Wade, to cut budgets that affect women disproportionately, child care, to privatize Social Security, to voucherize Medicare and Medicaid. When you look at the negative and the disproportionate impacts on women, I can't help but think that there's an onslaught taking place. And many of these women are women of color. And so in many ways we're under siege. But as a woman and as an African American woman, I know we're going to fight back, and there's a major resistance movement out there, and so we're going to win.
Now, there obviously aren't that many women in Congress, in political roles in general. There aren't that many people of color in political roles in general. There certainly aren't that many women of color in Congress. Are there even any? Well, anyway. What do you attribute that to, and what's your advice for other people who are obviously affected by these policies to get engaged?
I encourage women and women of color to get involved in politics at the local level in many, many ways. I mean, you don't have to necessarily run for public office immediately, but engage, empower communities, and make sure that you have a seat at the table. We have 14 African American women who are great women in the Congressional Black Caucus, and they are movers and shakers. They're brilliant and they're committed. Oftentimes we don't get a lot of publicity because we just do the work and we do what's right and continue to move on. And so we have to encourage more women of color to run for public office. But I have to tell you, money's an obstacle. When you look at the money in politics and the fact that we can't raise money like, you know, the majority of white men can raise money, we have to have public finance in the campaign. And this Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, that allowed the influx of corporate money into campaigns, this is outrageous with no disclosure. And so there are many, many factors that really are barriers for women and women of color, but we have to just shatter those barriers like we've done in the past and keep fighting.
I just have to ask you quickly, the elephant in the room when a bunch of progressives get together, are people in general, and certainly your constituents who are among some of the most progressive in the country, feeling too disenchanted with the president? Is it really creating a problem for him in the re-election?
Well, I think people are frustrated because we want to work. People want to work. They want jobs. They want to see this economy turn around. And so quite naturally, when you have an economic downturn that hasn't worked, and in my community, in many parts of my community, it's not a recession, it is a depression. African Americans and Latinos have been unemployed for many years. It just didn't start. And so our expectations are that we move forward in this era of change and create some targeted programs, targeted policies that recognize the fact that the pain has been disproportionately wreaked on communities of color. And so we're working very hard to make sure the president's reelected. Can you imagine if we had a Rick Perry as president, or Romney, or Michelle Bachmann?
No comment.
Okay, so the stakes are high. And so we're working each and every day to reelect President Barack Obama.
All right, ma'am, one last question from our mysterious grab bag of mystery questions. Go ahead. Pick one out, read it to folks, and let us know your answer.
Is it getting easier or harder for the next generation of women? Very good question. Well, I think, first of all, I hate to say this because it sounds like a politician, is both. Because it's easier for the next generation, much easier than it was for me. But because of that, so many younger women think that it always was and that those protections were there. For instance, the right to choice, the right to choose, the right to privacy. I remember the days of back alley abortions. The next generation of women probably don't and take it for granted. And so that makes it very difficult to maintain those gains.
Representative Lee, thank you so much for your great leadership for our country. Thank you for talking with me.
Thank you. Good seeing you.